Update. My wife's 30 female family still don't believe my assault after all these years, and still think I, 30 male, cheated on her. Original story. This happened almost 4 years ago, and it still seems to be an issue for them, even though the people who were responsible for what happened are behind bars. My ordeal resulted in a pregnancy. I got sole custody of my son after he was born, and my wife and I raised him together. He is so precious. My wife absolutely loves him to pieces. It is my whole world. Honestly, he was the best thing to come out of what happened. Her family gave me a lot of crap during this time. They were so sure I made it all up, and this was just to cover that the woman who did that to me was the mistress. Makes me sick thinking about it. My wife cut them out since they wouldn't listen. They only judged me for something I had no control over, making me feel like crap for ruining their daughter's life having her raise my affair child. Then my wife's father died from COVID last year. After that, her family wanted contact again because they realized how short life is. They apologized to both of us and expressed interest in meeting our son. After all this time, I was grateful they came around. I know she didn't like to admit it, but my wife missed her family, and they were great to us before this. I only am finding out now they don't actually accept me. Her sister approached me recently and said they were only making amends because they don't want to miss out on more of my wife's life, even if it means having to tolerate a freaking a-hole like me. Her exact words. So I shouldn't think this means they are okay with me now. Her sister said they will always hate me for what I did to my wife, and don't expect anything from them. That made me hit an all-time low, and I was depressed the rest of the day. They still think I'm a cheater, and will only tolerate me and my son for my wife's sake. My wife doesn't know about any of this. I'm not sure if I should tell her. We've spent so many years no contact with them because they didn't believe what happened to me. But now she has her family back after losing her dad, and I don't know if it would be right to take that away. What should I do? Now for the top advice before reading the update. You have to tell your wife. She deserves to know the whole truth. And whether she decides to keep them in her life or not, you and your son should never have any relationship with them again. Don't do that to yourself. And for sure, don't do that to an innocent child. Especially since they may try to plant seeds of doubt or something to make her eventually leave you. Most people wouldn't believe you, sadly. She's seen the physical proof of. Doubt is something I've never worried about, and it was never an issue of her believing me or not. She saw what happened. You tell your wife. She loves you and she loves her family, but she has already made it clear she can and will choose you and your son. My guess is she won't be happy at all that they are treating you like this, and hold both you and the kiddo in pure contempt and hate. You need to trust your wife just like she trusted you when you told her of you being violated. Now's your time to show her you trust her to process the information and make her own choice. Her family's disgusting and horrid. I can see why they wouldn't believe you, as not a lot of men are the victims of this by women. But it can and does happen. Tell your wife. Trust her. I trust her completely. What makes me really hesitant to tell her is because I know she wouldn't think twice cutting them out again. And I feel awful that after everything that happened, she'd go through the heartbreak of cutting off her family again. Her dad died with them still not speaking to each other. It's hard not to feel like it'll be my fault if this happens, but with the rest of her family. If you don't want her to cut them out of your life again, you can make that judgment call by telling her that. You can tell her you want her to keep some level of contact, but zero contact with both you and your son. There's nothing wrong with doing that. If you are open to a compromise, then take it. But you shouldn't be suffering silently. Actually, didn't think about this. Really love that idea. Thank you for mentioning it. Not sure she will take it, but I would like her to have that option of having some level of contact with them. It was her choice, and more importantly their behavior that caused this, I know. But it was still very hard not to feel responsible for going no contact. They were always very close before this happened. She cut them out of your life because they didn't believe you. So she's already established she's willing to make it enforce boundaries. Now they are back, but they still don't believe you. The difference this time is that she believes they believe you. By not telling her, you are lying to her by omission. The truth here is going to come out. Either the sister loops your wife in, or her parents let it slip. That day is coming, and when it occurs, your wife is going to be livid with you for withholding her right to enforce a set boundary she decided to implement. You have to tell her. And now for the update. In the end, I told my wife the truth about what her sister told me the night I made this post. Many of you had a point. and I couldn't keep something important like this from her. She's my rock. I love her with all my heart, and I will always be beyond grateful for all the support she's given me. I just wished I could give her this, having her family in her life, after everything she's done and sacrificed for me. It's sad that that couldn't be the case. My wife was extremely pissed, of course. She was ready to take names, but I asked her to please give it some time. Cool off before she talks to any of them. Some of you pointed this out and I told her the same thing, that we don't know if it's just her sister who feels this way or the whole family. So last Friday she talked to them. Got confirmation that unfortunately it wasn't just her sister. The entire family still doesn't believe that I was violated and that my son was a result from that. All the talk her sister made about tolerating me and my son for the sake of being in my wife's life again. My wife was so angry when she got home. They told her to accept they're always going to hold my infidelity against me and will never understand why she believes this narrative, but they're willing to set those feelings aside to have a relationship with her again. My wife told me she decided she's not going to see them again. Even with the compromise I mentioned, it was said in previous comments, about her still having some form of contact with them, just not me and my son. She doesn't want that and says she's done trying with them. We spent the night hugging and crying. Just because she was angry doesn't mean she also wasn't hurt about making this decision. We were down for days and then decided to take some days off from work. It was a spontaneous trip idea. We rented a hotel room a couple hours away and stayed there about 3 days with my son. We just hit the beach most days, went out to eat and stuff. Our son had a time of his life, and you know what? It was worth it. We definitely needed that time. Just got back last night, and I'll be honest, we both feel very recharged. It was a wonderful time that came from a horrible situation. Hope we can get better eventually. Thank you for the lovely support and the push I needed to be honest with my wife. It was a wonderful time that came from a horrible situation. They do say manure makes for better crops, right? I'm sorry. Dumb joke aside, I wish you and your family lots of love and happiness. I appreciate a good joke, and thank you. Opie, you clearly do deserve her. While her family was saying all these disgusting things to you, your primary thought was the negative effect on your wife if she knew. Please get your wife something nice and do loads of little things for her. Trust me, I am and plan to continue doing so. I feel like I don't deserve her, but I'll keep trying to show her how much she means to me. Opie, you clearly do deserve her. While her family was saying all these disgusting things to you, your primary thought was the negative effect on your wife if she knew. You two obviously care so deeply for each other and prioritize each other in the way that marriage vows were meant to promise. You have a beautiful family together, and she's devoted to you in this way because you show her that you're worth it. If you're able to, ask if she'd be willing to go to therapy. She's a wonderful partner, and while I agree with her cutting off everyone, it's still a difficult decision to make. Having a therapist tell her as much may help her adjust faster. Good on you for taking that break together. It's unfortunate that the sentiment seemed to be shared, but in retrospect, it's good to see her find out now than later. The stigma male assault survivors face is no joke. Glad she's having a no-tolerance policy when it comes to you and your kid. I'm happy she decided to cut contact with them and sided with you. That was very considerate of you to be okay with her staying in touch had she wanted to. You all deserve that break. Glad those toxic relations are being cut off. After everything, I just wished she wouldn't lose out on time with her family. She stopped having anything to do with them for years because of how they were acting. Her father passed away last year, and neither ever got to reconcile before that. She stands by her decision, and I have to respect that. All I can do is support her now how she supported me, and show her how I appreciate her. Next story. I, 23 male, find my girlfriend's 20 female, perfect family extremely intimidating. I, 23 male, have been dating my girlfriend, 20 female, now for nearly 6 months, and the more I get to know about her family, the more inadequate I feel. I know no family's perfect, but she comes from a really nice one, the sort of family that I used to think only existed on television. She's the second oldest of 4 siblings, with an older brother and a younger brother and sister. Her dad works high up in a school board, and her mom works in medicine, so they're very well off, and heard all of her siblings are destined for good careers. They're the sort of upper-middle-class family that own a big house and camper van, and all go on trips together. They're really close with all their extended family, and all meet up over Christmas/birthdays and play board games at family nights. They even have picture of all 7 of them, including the dog, in matching pajamas from last Christmas Eve. My girlfriend is about to start university doing law and has managed to get some work experience at a solicitor's from via a family friend. On the other hand, my family is kinda messed up. I'm not looking for a sob story, so I'm not going into too much detail. But I've never met my dad, and my mom wasn't exactly the family time sort of mom. I do think she's tried her best, but she has a lot of demons from her upbringing that she hasn't dealt with in the best way. I have one half-brother who's a few years younger than me, but his dad has disappeared again, so I have to spend a lot of time looking after him and making sure he gets to school, etc. I was the first person in my family to go to university, and even though it was a poor-ranking university and my grade was very average, I am still really proud of myself. I've met her immediate family a couple times for a meal and met a few of her extended family at a birthday party. Although they're all super nice, not a bunch of Karens, I just get so uncomfortable and embarrassed when they talk to me and ask me questions about my life and my family. I feel like they're so disappointed in my girlfriend for choosing to date me, especially because her cousin, who is a similar age to her, is engaged to some posh guy who also comes from a successful family. I've spoken to my girlfriend about it a little bit, and even asked if she'd be better off without me, but she insisted that she was happy with me, and her parents will see that. However, I just can't shake the feeling of inadequacy when they're talking about their holidays to Spanish villas, or what her older sister is achieving at work. It's hard to explain, but even just the vibe within the house where they'll sit down for a meal and tell each other how their day was or how they're feeling is so strange to me. Sorry if this is a bit long-winded or stupid, but it's just been playing on my mind a bit recently, and I can't help but think she deserves better. If anyone has been in a similar situation or could offer any advice, I'd really appreciate it. You are on a path of self-sabotaging if you keep it up. You need to find confidence that 1, your girlfriend chose you because of who you are, not your family, and 2, you are not your family. If you aren't comfortable sharing with them, just give a vague but honest answer, then change the subject. Them. What do your parents do for a living? You. My mom raised me by herself and works as/at fill-in job type or company. Girlfriend says you work in medicine. That must be rewarding. How did you choose medicine? Also, seeing a counselor or therapist to work through how you feel about your background could help you build up more confidence. I'm sort of in this situation now, but I'm your girlfriend and my guy isn't as open and honest with me as you being intimidated. If something seems too good for you, it's because you're used to settling for less. Look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, why would I turn down a family that accepts and supports its family members without proof that they don't want me? Healthy families often do their best to include more people. They want to be able to support the people their families care about. As for not knowing how to talk to them, that'll come in time. You've only had 6 months to learn your girlfriend's entire store and support group. By year 3, you'll be talking with them and getting along without much effort. I promise. Now for the last story. My 24 and 44 female thinks the story of how my fiancé and I met is gross and inappropriate. So, on my 24 female 18th birthday, I went to a bar with a few friends. Whilst there, we saw my now fiancé, Josh, who was 21 at the time. He had just been discharged from the army and was celebrating his newfound freedom. He was flirting with my friend, and I swooped in to help her and Josh started to flirt with me. I wasn't looking for a hookup or relationship, so brushed his advances off, but he wouldn't back down. He flashed us, pulled up his shirt to show his abs, and he kissed me without consent, resulting in him getting kicked out. The next year, on my 19th birthday, a friend invited me out to meet some of his old uni buddies, and Josh, 22 at the time, was there. He instantly recognized me and pulled me aside and apologized profusely. He said he was on hard drugs and doesn't actually remember what happened that night and only knows through his friend's choppy accounts. Well, we ended up talking and got quite close and started to date. He proposed to me 6 months ago, and our wedding is in August 2022. We announced the wedding at a family gathering, but have had talks in smaller groups since then. My aunt thinks the story of how we met is grossly predatory and inappropriate and sets a bad precedent for young boys. The fact he wouldn't back down and kissed me without consent. She said I should make something up so it's more appropriate for today's time. We both have different views, and she always pulls the "I'm older than you and therefore wiser" card. She has openly said she has no respect for Josh and will not come to my wedding. How do I get her to understand we're in a happy and loving relationship? Is it a lost cause? Now for the top advice. In a sense, she's absolutely right. You didn't just fall for him then and there, though. You accepted the situation for what it was and probably thought he was a douche. Fast forward a year, and he's seemingly a different person and he apologized. You've subsequently been together for what, 5 years now? Unless he's crossed any boundaries, would like to believe he's not the same person, and would like to assume you're in a good and healthy relationship. If that's the case, just state as much. This is the problem with disclosing issues with family. They'll focus on it. It is not as easy for them to forgive. At the end of the day, though, it's your life. If you're happy and not overlooking any red flags, she should be supportive of you and your life. If she's not, it's really her problem. Good luck. Edit. I would add that you should really stop telling that story. It's funny to you in hindsight, I imagine. But to a lot of people, they're going to receive it as, haha, let me tell you the story of how when I met my boyfriend, he harassed me and kissed me without my consent. We met at a bar will suffice. Or even, we met at a bar, didn't click at all, then ran into each other a year later and things had changed. If Obi really wants to share the almost didn't happen feel in some way. Wouldn't be surprised if a lot of other people who hear that story also thinks it's gross or at least a bit weird, but they just keep their opinion to themselves. He was in drugs and hitting on multiple women until kissing me without consent and getting kicked out isn't a cute tale. Totally agree. I'd also assume the boyfriend would find the story really embarrassing and upsetting for Opie to be telling. If Opie shared it with her aunt way back then, and the aunt remembers still, that's one thing. But if the story is part of their romantic narrative that comes up more regularly, the boyfriend probably hates it. It comes off so badly. It's not cute. If you don't want other people to think your fiancé is a creep, you probably shouldn't tell that full story. It's great that it's changed and all, but it comes off really poorly, and it would surely color how I saw him if I heard a full story.